And
Hello and welcome to World Sand Project. I'm the magical sand princess, Shelley Carney.
hi, Magical. So you're the MSP on this.
on this one.
Yeah, on this one, the MSP.
I'm not going to wear the crown though.
Yeah.
Just put that on the down low.
And I'm the Magical Sand Princess's best friend.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say that. Exclusive of your husband, of course.
Well,
and my name is
he's
Toby
family,
Younis.
your friend.
Yeah, my name is Toby Younis. Thanks for joining us today. We have a cool sand sample from the Great Smoky Mountains National Forest. How cool is that? Join us. We're going to have fun. So thanks for joining us today. And, oh, rats. I forgot the prizes.
Where are they?
They're on the counter in the kitchen.
Do you just want all of them? Or
No,
you want
just
one
the
of them?
two sand samples. I'm sorry. While Shelley's doing that, let me bring you guys up to speed. So starting next Friday, I will be airing 3 to 4 minute segments of the audio version of Vince Beiser's book called A Grain of Sand. And that's the book that got me started kind of on this whole thing with the pursuing sand project, the World Sand Project. But I thought you guys should have. I listen to it a lot. I listen to it while I'm driving because it is an audio book. I have it in audio. I have the book, but I listen to it in audiobook form. So starting next Friday, I'm going to pre-record like 3 minute segments, and over the next, I don't know, it should take us 4 or 5 years. We're going to get through the entire book. But he has so many interesting things to say that. And since our mission is to promote the idea that we're running out of sand as a resource, I thought I'd start playing those. Now, the second thing that I wanted to let you know is that we had been going on the World Sand Project. We had been doing Friday giveaways, and this is the giveaway for this coming Friday. And if you want to participate in that giveaway, you have to post to last Friday's show. All right, and this is the an image from that sand that we had last Friday from that great white northern fracking sand. So we're giving that away on Friday, but I'm going to do a switch over on you, and that is since we do our giveaways on Wednesdays for A Gypsy's Kiss. It's hard for me to remember all. I'm an old man. I'm going to be 71 here. It's hard to remember the whole Friday, Wednesday schedule. So from this point forward, we're going to give away the Sand Project giveaways on Wednesdays as well. And for next Wednesday, this is a polarized photograph. And again, the camera doesn't do it justice. Made from today's sample from the Great Smoky Mountains, from the Little River at the Y Townsend, or the Townsend Y. And so we'll give this image away. Next, this framed image, it's a dye sublimation print. I have it upside down. Okay.
I don't think it matters
It's
too much.
and I have a sticky on it. Okay. So it's a dye sublimation print of one of the grains of sand from today's sample. It has the location that the sample was collected and my name. And so we're going to give that away next Wednesday. And from this point forward, we'll be doing giveaways on the World Sand Project on Wednesdays as well as A Gypsy's Kiss. I hope that wasn't confusing. But if you want to qualify for the last of the Friday giveaways, go to last Friday's video on Great Northern White, whatever the fracking sand was, and make sure you make a comment, because it's that comment that qualifies you. And it doesn't make any difference how many comments you make. Commentpicker.com looks at the duplicates and it throws out the duplicates. Okay. Today's sand sample comes to us from Jeffrey Kinsley. Am I pronouncing that right? Kinsley?
I don't know. Where is it written at?
It's written on my sample catalog page.
Kinnersley.
Kinnersley. And we'll be showing you that today. But before we do that, of course, I have to do
Housekeeping, you want to?
because es muy importante to do housekeeping. So first of all, before you leave today, give us a shot, give us some love, like our video, because YouTube likes it when you like our video, as well as our friends like it when you like our video, and they know because I tell them. Share it with your family, your friends, your neighbors, your business associates, the entirety of your social network, so that we can
Grow the channel.
You don't know how
Save the world.
save the world. You don't know how hard that was last week without you.
Well, first Fridays are going to be tough for you.
Uh-oh. What does that mean? Is that the new conference day?
Yeah.
Okay.
I might make the sand one, but probably.
Okay, all right.
I know
Well,
I'm
we
not
won't
going to
push it.
make
No,
the
no. Friday's
nighttime
Fridays.
one on
Okay.
first Friday.
What about the softer side?
I might make that. I don't know.
Oh, okay. So, but it has nothing to do with you going to church on First Fridays.
For church, no, I'm going to be networking.
Yeah, networking, brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
Entrepreneur.
Yeah, well,
The magical sand
we
princess
all have our
slash
goals and priorities in the new
entrepreneur.
year, and that's one of mine, is
Okay,
to grow
that's
my
fair.
business,
Grow your
and
business.
that requires first Fridays for me.
Okay, I'm good with that.
Okay.
Grow your Can we practice that?
Grow my business.
Okay, grow your business. And then last but not least, if you're not already a subscriber, give us some more love and subscribe to the channel. And by
Bark.
clicking that subscribe button, and
That
once
was
you
the
see
subscribe button.
the notification bell,
Bell.
click on the notification. I'm going to have to do all of this every first Friday, huh?
Unless you find
two
somebody
times?
else to come
No,
in on
no,
first Fridays.
I can't do that.
Get Janet to come in.
You're irreplaceable.
Get Janet to come in.
Who's gonna drive out here in the boonies?
I don't know, Janet.
Nobody I know. They're the mom in the boonies. as
Maybe
far
your
as I can
neighbor
see.
will do it.
Maybe the UPS girl I could convince you.
Well, there you go. Yeah, she likes you.
So subscribe, hit the notifications bell, and that way when we start a live stream or we schedule a live stream, you'll be immediately informed. And
In the know.
because there's so many things to be in the know about.
That's right.
So for those of you that reminded me over the past week that I had not correctly used the copyright, changed my copyright date, you'll see above me, I've changed the copyright date to 2020. Keeping an eye on chat room.
Yeah, JK says he won't be able to see and talk to you.
Oh, that's too bad.
I don't know if it's one or the other,
Okay, well, no worries.
and
Let's
not
see.
both,
Well,
or
ask him if we could just call him, because I have his phone number. We could just call him. He doesn't have. We don't have to Zoom him in.
you ask him.
Oh, JK, Jeff, can we just call you when we're ready to talk? And I'll call you when we start showing the sand samples under the microscope. So these are a couple of emails that JK sent us. He also sent us a nice package of pictures. I sorted through them to kind of get the ones that I like the most. But we're also going to see some pictures that were taken by folks in the area, because this is a very popular picnicking, hanging out area. Hi, Toby and Shelley. My name is Jeff Kinnersley, a.k.a. JK Pioneer, and I live out here in beautiful East Tennessee. The Smokies are about 45-minute drive from the house. The Townsend Y is a popular place during the summer for tubing, swimming, and fishing year-round. This is where the Little River meets the West Prong Little River, and the two coming right after the bridge. We have pictures of all of those too. The first picture looking down at the rocks and sand is where I took the sample. It looks like I'm going to have to send pictures in batches, which he did. Render the pictures. Please let me know if you have any questions. Okay. So he and I have communicated several times since then, because Jeff won the last Friday's giveaway. So I was able to send that to him, and as I understand it, he did get that in the mail. He also he says that. Shelley and Toby, I received the sand picture on Monday. That was fast. It's more beautiful than on YouTube. I keep telling you guys, it's the YouTube doesn't do it justice. They're really, and you got to remember what you're looking at there is a grain of sand under a polarizing microscope. How often do you get it? And I keep telling everybody, this is one of one. There will be no more prints made from this. This one dye sublimation print in this mat and frame is the only one of these images that will ever be made, okay?
It's an original that way.
So to qualify for this giveaway next Wednesday, make a comment on today's show.
As original as a grain of sand.
As original as the grain of sand, which is in the image. Beautiful. My knowledge is limited to the Smokies, but we can talk about it. Okay, so I do have his phone number, so if he wants us to call, what does he say?
Says I don't think I'll be able to see what we're talking about.
We don't. I just want to hear more about the area. So we'll talk about the area. So don't worry about it. I'll call you. I better turn the phone on. Okay. So there was one other thing that I wanted to say.
About my shirt.
Yes, I noticed your. What do they call this?
It's an aloha shirt.
Aloha
you
shirt.
sometimes call it.
Is that you know who that looks like? That looks like the singer. What is
Jimmy
it?
Buffett?
Jimmy Buffett. Is that a Jimmy Buffett?
Kind
shirt?
of, because it's got guitars. And what does it say?
Margaritas.
A
ballad of the blues.
Of the blues. And 6-string music.
Yeah.
And kind of thing. What's this say?
That says
Things to do while wearing this shirt. Fire up the grill, kick back and relax, drink margarita,
oh, that's gotta
listen
be.
to Jimmy Buffett, get compliments for your cool shirt. See?
Let me see.
It's a Jimmy Buffett shirt.
It's a Margaritaville, which is his
Margaritaville
brand.
shirt. Yeah.
Which is his brand.
There
now,
you go.
I told her I would wear them, but I don't know if you guys know that I went through a clean out my closet about a month ago, and so I took all my suits and all my most of my suits, most of my ties, several pairs of shoes, and all of my beach shirts.
I'm also wearing orange. You know why?
Oh, because you're a Tennessee Vol.
Because that's what color they have.
Yeah,
at
that's their
Tennessee.
color.
Volunteers wear orange.
So
That's their
this
color.
location, and let me pull up the map so we can talk about that just a little bit. So I do want to mention to JK. Oops, didn't want to do that. I want to do that. Okay,
then
so we're going to go
show
over
it.
to window shot. Remind me that I'm in window shot because I tend to forget. So the location that we're looking at is in pretty much the middle of those are the Appalachian Mountains right there. Appalachian. And they are.
Every time I meet somebody from that area, I
they
ask them,
correct
"How
you.
do you say it?"
They say
and
Appalachian.
they say Appalachian.
Yeah. And they are older than the Rockies. They are not as high. They're more weathered because they are older, and they are probably considered the other major mountain range in the United States in comparison to the Rockies. And the other thing that you notice about it, when I moved out there, the first thing that I noticed was that instead of covered with pine trees, although it may be at higher altitudes, it's mostly covered with deciduous trees. And I'm a hiker. And I used to do a lot of hiking in the Southwest. And in the Southwest, you're dealing, even when you're in the mountains, you're dealing with a lot of open space. You can see the sky, you can see ahead, et cetera, et cetera. When you're hiking in locations like this, it's basically in the summer. It's a tunnel of green, but you're hiking in a tunnel of green. It's pretty amazing with all those deciduous trees. So you can see the location is approximately, there's Knoxville, and the location is about 22 miles as the crow flies, south and east of Knoxville. And there's a little place right here. It's kind of a country town. It's called Pigeon Forge. If you ever get to this area, go to Pigeon Forge. But
Isn't that where Dollywood is?
Yeah, yeah. And that's why it's such a cute little area. But the reason I'm so familiar with Knoxville is that my daughter number 4, child number 5, Erica, attended the University of Knoxville. She was in the engineering school in logistics, and she married a fellow student. His name is Patrick. They now live in Boca Raton, Florida. They have one child, Everly, beautiful daughter. You've seen pictures. We saw pictures of Everly in one of our other streams, and they're expecting again in March. And it turns out that it's another girl. So Patrick, who's kind of a jockey, baseball-y guy, I think he's going to keep trying until he gets a boy because he wants a boy. So I spent a lot of time. I spent 4 years traveling back and forth between Northern Virginia, Washington, D.C., and Knoxville to visit her, and she became they're still, of course, great volunteer. Rocky Top, you'll always
Okay,
be.
moving on to the next slide.
Sweet home to me. Good old Rocky Top, Tennessee. Go Vols. No, that's not them, but that's their
All
thing.
starts with a V.
Oh, that's right. Go Vols. And so, yeah, I'm familiar with that area. I was thinking they have a lot of lakes that come off, a lot of water areas, dammed up water areas, because the Tennessee River goes through there. And of course, the Tennessee Valley Authority managed all that water since the 1920s or 30s, I guess. And so there's a lot of beautiful lakefront property up there. And several times that I'd go to visit her, we went to look at some of that available lakefront property. And I considered living out there and buying some property and building a house on it. So that never came to fruition. Moving on. The area, this is the Little Y River, and it is at the intersection of the Little Y and the middle, you'll see it right here, middle prong of the Little Y River parking. This bridge that you're going to see images of, it's a stone bridge, and it crosses over the Little River right there. And again, this is right in the middle of the Smoky Mountains, so it's a very dramatic and beautiful area. I think we'll switch over to the map right now for just a couple of seconds because there were some really nice pictures of this area. Not that we got the pictures from Jeff aren't nice, but Jeff took his pictures. I think he collected the sample around the beginning of December, so it looked like the winter months in the pictures. Actually, let's show his pictures first, and then we'll go through these. So he included something with his package, and I printed out here. Hey, Toby and Shelley, my name is Jeff, aka JK Pioneer. Here's a sand from the Little River at the Townsend Y in the Great Smoky Mountains. I will email pics and info, which he did. So this is actually for our other show, and if you want to see the gemstones and the silver that he sent us, make sure you watch A Gypsy's Kiss Tonight. We'll show then I took pictures of them. Beautiful gemstones that he sent for the Treasure Princess. The magical Treasure Princess. The entry to the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. Oh, you know what? That's interesting. I'm going to have to correct my entry into the catalog because I thought it said the Great Smoky Mountains National Forest. Oh, we'll have to change that. To the national park. So this is the image of the location where he took the sand sample, and you are going to almost immediately see the difference between the sample that's collected in a river in the mountains versus the samples that we've seen from the various beaches, and I'll explain that in just a bit. So he sent us several pictures from the area across the river and upstream, and you can see where the road is that you saw on the map. That's the stone bridge that you can't see because Google Earth has placed a road over it. It's a beautiful stone bridge. And he took a couple of pictures. But the nice thing about this, and I'm going to show you some pictures, this parking area is also a picnic area. And so during the summer months and the warmer months, even the water remains cold, people go there to enjoy the water. So let me show you some of those pictures from the mapping area. So they've got some really nice photographs. So this is how it looks during the summer months. This photograph was taken by Suzanne in July of 2018. And this is the picnic area that I was referring to. So you can see, and the place that I'm assuming that the place that Jeff took the sand sample from is just upriver from this. So here's a picture. I tried to find some pictures of each season. So here's a picture in the snowy winter months, and here's a picture in the fall months. So, and again, with all those deciduous trees, you get a lot of great color in there. So, but let me show you, there were some pictures of the crowds that, there's a pretty one. That was taken by Joe Bassamore. But lots of families, lots of kids hanging out. You can see they use the beach area kind of, and I'm going to use that as a qualifier, the beach area back there. But in a lot of the pictures that I was looking at, let's see if the latest ones, they all have people in them. For example, here's one. Let me see, that is not well focused, but that's not my fault. Oh, that's a video, that's why. And then we had a couple of 360 views, which I thought were pretty neat. And you can't get far from the parking lot without getting down to this area. I mean, if you look at this area, it pretty much looks like the area from which Jeff collected the sample. Now, what I want you to remember here is that we're talking about a river in the Smoky Mountains upstream, effectively from, depending on which water it connects to, either the Atlantic Ocean and or the Gulf of Mexico. Now, my guess is this water ends up in the Atlantic Ocean and then ends up on the beaches. But by this time, it's been weathered off these granite mountains here, and it hasn't spent a lot of time either weathering in comparison. It may have spent 1,000 years, but to make beach sand can take not just thousands. In some cases, it takes millions, and in a couple of cases, it takes hundreds of millions of years. So the sample that you're going to see today hasn't been at it for that long. And so you're going to see a completely different kind of sand. So let's go over to the sand samples. And first of all, that's the sand in the Petri dish that I will put under the polarizing microscope. Under the quartz sample dish, I will put under the stereo microscope. And this is the sand in its sample jar, and that's the one we keep, right? But so they all made it through the 2 millimeter screen without any difficulty. But you can see that's a piece of quartz, and you will see it under the stereo microscope. Some of the pieces of quartz are much larger. But when we start putting them under the microscope, and I do have some photographs of them under the microscope, but I would rather you see them yourself, so I'm going to switch over to that in just a minuto. So that was the first picture that I took with the Andenstar digital microscope. And you can see these large pieces of quartz, for example, but you also see the large composite stones. Those aren't minerals. The quartz is a mineral. The large composites are rocks, effectively. So they haven't broken down yet. And you can see there's far more rocks than there are just individual pieces of quartz, because it is. Here's a little bit closer again with the Andenstar digital microscope, and there's a bluish tint to all the rocks and gray in the background. But in comparison to some of the beach sand samples we've seen recently, there's a relatively small amount of quartz. And the reason is quartz has a hardness on the Mohs scale of 7, so it survives its travels down the river, while these rocks don't. They get broken up into progressively smaller pieces, eventually becoming pieces of very specific minerals. So they don't make it out that far. And again, we're talking about something that's upriver. So these, if you look at the grains of sand, they're very, very angular. There's, this would make great, I shouldn't say this, this would make great concrete, cement, mix it with cement and aggregate, and that's what they're looking for. They're not looking for those rounded grains of sand that we saw last week that came to us from Wisconsin. This is the stuff that they're looking for because it's rougher around the edges. It hasn't been in the river long enough to start smoothing out, and it certainly hasn't been in the ocean with repeated cycles of being washed onto the shore and then washed off. Washed on? Oh, no, that's not it. Is it?
Wax on.
Waxed on. And the other thing that I tested was, of course, magnetism.
Yeah.
Magnetism. And it didn't show a great deal of magnetism, which surprised me. I figured coming from the mountains, and that soon out of those granite mountains in Tennessee, there'd be more magnetic stuff. There was a couple of relatively large pieces, but just look at that piece. That's magnetic enough to stick, but there's no smoothness to it. It almost looks like a spearhead, a miniature spearhead, if you will. It just hasn't been smoothed out enough as it goes through the water. So this is a good shot of the photograph that the winner of next week's, so remember, put a comment in this week's video. I'm sorry if that's confusing, but I just decided to move everything to Wednesdays. So
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
You can win on Wednesdays.
So this is the image that I put into the 4x6 die sublimation print and into that frame. So that's what next week's winner is going to win. Okay. So let's switch over to the microscopes, and I've got to turn
Microscope time.
Okay, you can't do that to those poor guys. We want to copy them. They do such a good job of making their own show. All right.
As do we.
The first thing that you'll notice, and again, I do want to point out that that all of this sample made it through the 2 millimeter, the number 10 mesh, the 2 millimeter mesh. But the other thing that I noticed, and I don't think I have to show you on here, I was leveling the sample, and a lot of the material that was larger moved over to the left side of the crucible, and I guess that was just because what I was doing. But you can see over to the left side, there's some much larger material there in comparison to the right side. To me, this looks like sand, but again, there is a low population of quartz, of the clear quartz that we see in the beach samples. So let me squooge in a little bit closer. Squooge is a word.
Squooge
It's
is a new word that Toby
we use it
has
in
discovered
the science world a lot.
while deciphering sand texts, ancient sand texts.
So the other ancient Sanskrit, they use the word Scrooge all the time. So you can see there's some larger particles, and eventually these will break it down. You do see some quartz, but it is very roughly hewn. Even this one, there's no smoothness to it. It doesn't necessarily have to be round, but the things that we see coming from beaches have survived traveling down the river because they're harder than these rocks, for example, because that's a rock. That is not a mineral. You can tell because it's got a composite nature to it. And it's smoother because it's softer. So as it runs down the river, it continues to break down, and eventually it'll release its own grains of quartz and other minerals. So on the scale of things, I don't want to get into molecules and atoms. So
He said he's ready for a phone call when you're ready.
oh, good. Okay. Oh, let's call him right now.
Do you want to go to bigger screen or leave that up?
No, I'm going to leave this up so we can talk to him while we're
Okay,
doing
we're
this.
calling you up, Jeff.
Here it comes. 865.
Shh, don't say it all out loud. Number.
Hello.
Hey, Jeff, it's Toby and Shelley.
Okay, let me turn my volume down here.
Yeah, because it'll come up in the background.
Trying to mute this in here.
That's all right.
There we go.
All right. So, first of all, how are you?
I'm good. How you guys doing?
We're doing okay. And secondly,
I'm super.
she's the magical
All right.
sand princess is super. By the way, thank you very much. We're going to show those gemstones that you sent us on tonight's show. We'll talk about them then.
Okay.
But thank you very much for sending those. I've already decided.
problem.
I'm going to put them in some pendants, so the magical sand princess can wear. I thought she needed a citrine. So, do you live in Knoxville by any chance?
I live outside of Knoxville, about 20 miles.
Oh, okay, all right. So
I live out in the country. We have no internet and all that other stuff. So
Oh, I see.
That's why I have to get it off my cell phone here.
all right, no worries. Because the reason I don't know whether you saw earlier in the show, one of my daughters attended the University of Tennessee at Knoxville in the School of Engineering, and the guy she married, Patrick, was also attending there. They now live in Boca Raton. So I spent 4 years traveling back and forth between Washington D.C. and Knoxville. You missed it. You may have missed it, but I sang Rocky Top. That's how much. Are you a Vol?
Actually, I was born and raised in Oregon, so I'm a Duck fan.
All right. Which explains why you don't have that Tennessee drawl, huh?
Yeah, I've been here since 2006.
Oh, okay. So tell us about this area that you collected the sand from. It looks like it's very popular, but kind of off the beaten track because you have to get into the Great Smokies.
Yeah, well, the Townsend's a town just right outside the park, and that's the closest entrance into the Smokies.
Yeah.
To me, and they tout themselves as the quiet side of the Smokies. So
Right,
compared
because
to,
the other side is along the eastern seaboard, and it gets a lot of traffic.
yeah,
We used to go-
and then the town of Gatlinburg gets a lot of visitors, and
Right.
it's quite loud.
Yeah. What's in Gatlinburg? It's not the Grand Ole Opry. There's something in Gatlinburg.
I haven't been there.
Now there's an aquarium there. It's mainly rip. It's a tourist trap.
Yeah. Well, that's what I had been to Pigeon Forge. I had visited Pigeon Forge with my daughter, and that's where
it's
Dollywood
Dollywood.
Dollywood is.
Dollywood is, yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing too is my daughter wanted me to buy property out there, so she was every time I went out, she'd take me out to along the Tennessee River where those dams had formed lakes, and we'd look at property out there. So, but it was a beautiful area. I got to say that.
Yeah.
It is beautiful.
Did you want to show the
I,
map?
I live
there again?
about 2 minutes from an area of the Little Tennessee River, and I'll get you a sample from there.
So let me go back to the map so we can get an idea of
What you guys are talking about.
what we're talking about. Hang on. It'd be easier if I go back here. So how often do you go out to this area?
Usually during the summer.
Yeah, yeah. Have you ever? Is it any good for trout fishing? I know there were people that were playing in the water there, so I imagine it's warmer.
I've yet to trout fish up there in the rivers up there, but I have people I work with that do.
Yeah. So the area you're talking about, again, for those of you that tuned in a little bit later, that's Knoxville, home of the University of Tennessee, and this is the area we're talking about. Pigeon Forge is right there, and you said you were in Townsend.
No, Townsend's the entrance. I live in the city of Greenback. It's a small town in the country.
All right, I don't see it. Oh, there it is, right there, in the valley, down at the foot of the mountains, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're about 25 miles from Knoxville as well, as the crow flies.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Neat. We wanted.
And then also how you mentioned it flows in the Atlantic. Actually, the Little River eventually flows into the Tennessee River, and the Tennessee River eventually flows into the Mississippi, which
then flows into
the Gulf.
The Gulf. Yeah, I think as I thought about it, it's going to be the water on the eastern side of the mountains that flows into into the Atlantic. Yeah, and a lot of the water that flows from the Tennessee, from the Little River to the Tennessee to the Mississippi, does end up in the Gulf, but a lot of it gets caught up as silt rather than sand by the time it gets down there. So it never makes it to those sandy beaches. Clearwater, I think, is on the Gulf side of Florida, and it has a really beautiful sand beach, but I don't know where that comes from. I'll have to find out. But again, you can look at this sample and you can compare it to some of the, as I said to our audience, you can compare it to some of the samples that we've seen from the beaches recently, and you can see this hasn't broken down in the same way. And I mean broken down in a good way. I don't mean, it hasn't, the edges aren't smooth. The quartz crystals are still very, very rough, hardly rounded, but still very rough. And so you can see the difference between something that's way upriver from this process than one that's already ended up in the beaches. So we really appreciate you sending us this particular sample because it's an indication of how different the grains of sand in a river upstream from the ocean is versus the one that's been in the ocean and been through several smoothing cycles,
Well, I thought it would be a good sample for us all to look at.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It's a good sample. And what's amazing is when you first see it, it's got a kind of gray and brown dull look. And then you look at it under the microscope and it's just as dynamic as all the other samples we've seen. I did see some garnets in there, some small garnets in there. So you could probably, these are of course sand grain sized garnets, but you can probably hunt or I don't know if you can, not dredge, but pan. You could probably pan for garnets in that area. Just based on what it's
there's supposed to be gold in the Little River. I haven't found any yet.
Oh, I didn't see any in the sample, but it would be interesting. Have you ever done any panning in that area?
No.
Oh, all right. Okay. Well, Jeff, thank you very much for A, sending a sample, B, calling in, and C, for the nice gifts that you sent. The Magical Treasure Princess. We'll show those on this show tonight.
Well, no problem there, and thank you for that picture. It's very beautiful.
Yeah, it is very different when you see it in person, right? I like the camera, because of the camera lighting in here, although it's good for us, it doesn't necessarily do it justice. So
yeah, you wouldn't think it's sand when you first look at it.
Yeah, no, you don't. That's the hard part is you look at it and you're trying to figure out what is that. And it's kind of neat to have people look at it and have them ask you because they ask, where did you see all these? Because they think they're rocks and gemstones in some cases, and you say, nope, that's just sand. Yeah, it's kind of neat. All right, sir. Thanks again for calling in.
Right.
We'll talk to you later.
Okay. We'll see you tonight. All right.
You will. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So that was Jeff. Very kind of him. And let's go back to our sand. How much time do we have there, Sand Princess? get I'm going to get a little bit closer. What I wanted to do was see if I could find any of those garnets, because I did see some in the sample. So I know there's some in there someplace. There's a lot more of the blue, and that could very well be lapis. But there was a couple of good-sized quartz pieces. That one, for example, good-sized quartz, but it's not the translucent quartz. The one over to the right there is, you've seen it's already started the weathering, the water movement process, because it's starting to smooth out. Let me zoom in even further here and get some close-up look at some of these samples. So now as you get in closer, you can see some of the quartz samples, those lighter colored. This obviously is, you can see the conchoidal fractures in it. These are all various forms of quartz, but they're equally populated by rocks. Rocks that haven't been broken down into the specific minerals. And of course, when they are, some of those minerals aren't tough enough. They're softer than the quartz, so they'll never make it down into the ocean. There's a good size piece. I say good size, it's still a grain of sand, right? So there's a good sized piece of quartz with some of the conchoidal fractures and some sort of inclusion in there. But you look at this in comparison. I mean, if I'm hoping that if I were to show you two pictures without telling you where they were from, and I would know that one is from a river and the other is from a beach, you could say, oh no, that one's from the river, and the reason is they haven't smoothed out, they haven't worn down, they are weathered, they have made it into the river, so there's been some weathering, of course, but certainly not to the level that we've seen by the time it gets to the beaches, and it's pretty much smoothed out. So it's got some pretty rough edges. Now, on the other hand, if you were a builder and you needed to acquire some sand to mix with aggregate and then with cement to make concrete, this would be an ideal product, and that's why in some cases they are dredging rivers to get the sand miners. And in the United States, there's a process for sand mining that you have to go through, as we talked about in last week's Great White Northern fracking sand. So the same would be true here. They're not going to let you into the little river and start dredging without
It's a national
some kind of
park.
permission.
Don't-
You're not going to. There's nothing. So
Let's not get carried away down there.
let's switch over to the polarizing microscope, and that's going to need some light. And let's take a look at some of these under. So this was under the polarizing microscope, one of the finer pieces of quartz that I found. But as you can see, and I'm going to try not to say this any more than this time, it's rough. It hasn't made it through the weathering process that would find it on the someplace on the beaches, downstream from wherever this is. And if it's going to the Gulf, it may never make it onto the beaches. So I want to zoom in on this one, and here the point I want to make is you can actually see some small garnet crystals in this particular rock. So eventually that particular rock, that red rock, is going to break down and release those garnets. Now they're too small to put into, they're too small to find, much less put into a piece of jewelry, but they're there, and that's an indication that you might be able to find larger pieces of garnet in this river along with those quartz crystals. But you can see it's surrounded by a conglomerate, and that conglomerate is holding not only smaller grains of quartz, but those smaller grains of garnet in there. So, like I said, that's a good indication, not that I'm a prospector, but that's a good indication that you should be able to find garnets in this river if they're showing up in the samples.
Doug Carver says some of that looks like gold spots.
Oh, in the sample that we just showed? Mm-hmm. Well, Jeff said that he's been told that there's gold in there. We have not yet. I don't know. Is that a flake of gold right there? Maybe we can find a flake of gold for.
I wouldn't know the differences.
So one of the interesting objects I found was a long, and there are pictures. So here is one of those grains of quartz that's still very, very rough, hasn't been worn down and weathered. So I'll get some additional pictures, but if you go to bit dot, bit.ly dot, I'm never going to remember this, bit.ly / WSP, all in uppercase, 0014 photos. That's where you'll find all these photos. And that, as well as the map, are in the description box below, and it includes all these photos. I was going to show you a couple of weird objects that I found when I was searching around with the polarizing microscope. I found this. It actually looks to me like quartz. You can see the quartz structure, but it looks like the kind of quartz that was going to end up as a crystal one day. So these photos are in there. Again, there's some more garnets. There's the odd piece of quartz that we started this program with, and I think that's the piece of quartz that I ended up using in the photograph that's in the dye sublimation print that whoever wins today's giveaway will get. All right, let's go back to full frame real quick because we got to get ready for another show. So remember, if you want the sample from the Great North White Fracking, whatever.
Upside down.
Oh, it is. If you want the right side up version of that sample, make a comment on last Friday's video, okay? And if you want to be in, and we'll give that away this coming Friday. And then if you want to be in competition for this Wednesday's prize from the Great Smokey, from the Little River, in the Great Smoky Mountains, make a comment on today's show, and we'll give that away next Wednesday. I'm sorry if all of that is confusing. It was just a decision I made because it's easier to process both of these images in one day.
Just make comments on all the videos.
Yeah,
and
just
you're
make
good.
comments on all the videos, and sooner or later you'll win one. How's that?
Easy.
Okay.
And tell your friends.
And tell your amigos.
Thanks for being here. We had Captain Marvel, Doug Carver, Odin, J.K. Pioneer, and Corey Jacobs in the room today. We appreciate you all being here. And for the World Sand Project, I'm the magical Sand Princess, Shelley Carney.
And I'm your friendly sand crazy guy. I don't know how to describe
Sandman,
myself.
Mr. Sandman.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us today. We hope you found this entertaining and informative. Remember, sand is behind water and air, the most consumed resource on the planet. And we're now at the stage where we're using it more. We're using more of it than the planet has the ability to replenish. So just something to think about, okay? If you want to help, recycle your glass. That will help. And then we'll see you on next Friday at 3 p.m. for a new sample that we got from our good friend Michael Hoole when he was in Australia.
Yay.
So we'll be talking about that.
From the Down Under.
From Down Under, that's right.